Hi, I'm Rob, and welcome back to Series 4 of the Uncut Network. We rotate back and forth between directors, actors, and super specific genres, and we cover everything from 90s teen movies, which is everything, to Reece Shearsmith to Jordan Peele, touching on everything from exploitation to names more people should know about, and things your parents won't endlessly question you for liking. Plus everything in between, and this is a Halloween special, the first ever for the podcast. And to cover all of this and more, I've been joined by Kat. Hello there.
Hello.
Caitlyn.
Hello.
Faye.
Good evening, Rob.
Yes, it is. And Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
How are you all doing? And it's totally Halloween, so I'm going to keep up the facade of being Halloween. So how are you doing this Halloween?
I made trick-or-treat bags today, so it is Halloween.
Yeah. It's been Halloween since about mid-August, is it not?
I'm wearing a ghost on my chest, so it's definitely Halloween.
And I'm surrounded by crafted pumpkins, so yeah, definitely Halloween.
Yes. So it's a Halloween special. It's going to be a bit different than our usual structure. We agreed on a bit of an untraditional piece, really. We're going to go through 10-ish movies, and we're going to pick 2 each, and they're going to both those picks. And this is really badly explained. I've never spoken English before, apparently. We're all going to do a double pick, like a double bill, and they're Halloween double bills that maybe more people need to have seen. We're using the barometer and Letterboxd. Was it under 50,000 or under 100 that we went with in the end?
I think it was under 100, but I think most of them were under 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked, honestly, looking on Letterboxd, how much is under that, even 50. It's like, do people not watch anything on there?
Yeah.
They just watch, like, The Joker and the other 5 bro movies? Is that it? That's what Letterboxd is now?
It's just all Joker and Blumhouse movies.
Oh, yeah.
And Trap.
Trap.
Yeah, so how do we want to do this? Do we want to do 2 each at a time? Like, Kat go first, she do her 2, and then we just move through it like that? Does that work for everybody?
I think that's a good idea, because I thought we were curating on a theme. I might have taken this too seriously.
I did too.
No, it works. So, for your first movie, Kat, of your Halloween double bill of under the radar movies, what have you got?
So my first pick is a film called Live Screamers. It's relatively new. It's been on the festival circuit since I think last year. It played at Panic Fest earlier this year, but is now available to rent on Prime or buy on Blu-ray. It is technically a sequel, but you don't have to have seen the original to enjoy it. Although if you go into YouTube, it is available for free on the filmmaker's channel, and it's like 70 minutes. But the premise of Live Screamers. I always get streamers with it because it's about streamers. It's about video game streamers, and they basically got kind of like their own Twitch channel, and they're doing a special recording with a competition fan winner, and they've got this brand new game by this independent developer which seems to know all of them intimately, and suddenly as they're playing, if you die in the game, you die in the real world. And I always love a video game horror. You know, Stay Alive, as much as it gets mangled, is a lot of fun. And I think Live Screamers is that for a new generation. And the way I've kind of done my double bill is Live Screamers is the film that you watch with your mates around for the party. And then my second choice, which we'll get onto in a bit, is the one like when you want to get like really spooky. So this is like a fun with friends film, and just independent horror, and the work that has gone into it. They use the Unreal Engine, and they've got all of the video game stuff running in parallel with the streaming windows. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, riffing heavily on games like Until Dawn, but it's a lot of fun.
Anybody else seen Live Scream? Nah. Hang on. Live Screamers? Did I
No.
make a mistake?
Live
No.
Screamers.
Yeah.
No, but I'm definitely intrigued. That does sound exactly right up my alley.
Yeah, I watched it a little earlier this year, and as you say, the effort that's gone into creating those game environments is insane. It looks like you're watching a full Twitch channel of someone playing out a game on really high-end equipment, which is fairly unique. I think for an indie film, you'd tend to, you can see them going, could we have a point and click? Would that not be easier? But no, you get the full character design, you get everything in there. So it's really interesting. And the kind of identity politics that are involved in the film as well is quite interesting. And it keeps everything moving quite swiftly. It's not a very long film, is it?
Yeah, this one's about 90 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you want for a double bill, really. Nice and to the point. You said, like, video game horror. Is that a thing that completely missed me by? Because I've not heard of anything like that.
Yeah, so there's Stay Alive, which was like the early noughties, and it had Malcolm in the Middle. Is that there's Malcolm in the Middle in that one?
Community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like one of like the supporting actors from the OC and Sophia Bush. And again, it's you die in the game, and then that's how they. I think it's Elizabeth Bathory is like in the video game, and she's going out like she's going out hunting people. And then there's one from the early 90s, sort of just after Terminator 2 with Edward Furlong called Brain Scan, and that's like a haunted like arcade game thing. And then there's also kind of adjacent in a way, there's Graham Skipper's Sequence Break. But that's more like body horror. Let's go and have sex with an arcade machine. So it's sort of video game horror, but just not quite
Who amongst
like
us
Live
hasn't
Screamers.
considered it?
You could also say test screening from Black Mirror would technically be classed as gaming horror.
Yeah.
Or something like Existence, the Cronenberg film,
Yeah.
where they've got the sort of handheld controller and
So yes, I've been basically asleep at the wheel. There's loads. It's a takeaway there.
That's the next collection of genre is to make you sit and watch them all.
Oh, I've got some awful things in that genre. Where you think that's like a terrible sort of blow? No, it goes deeper. It goes much deeper than that. But it sounds interesting as well. The fact that they made it free on YouTube, that is very bold. I mean,
So that's the first one. This one is available to rent on Prime, but the first one, Live Scream, is from a couple of years ago, and it is one dude doing his Saturday Scream stream, and he gets hold of an earlier variation of this game, but with this one, each time he dies in the game, one of his viewers dies, and they sort of like become whittled down and locked in, and each level is a different style of game, so it kind of goes through like gaming history. So you've got your dungeon labyrinth, sort of you're trapped in, and then you've got your Call of Duty-esque one, you've got your Lost in the Woods. It kind of goes through lots of the really popular iterations of gaming. And then I think the director Michelle, I think she just wanted a slightly easier time with the sequel and went, let's just make it all kind of one type of game, because I've got to render all this,
That's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Anybody seen that one? Anybody curious about that one?
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to watch that. I've already kind of like queued for when we're finished. I've already queued up the first one on YouTube.
Interestingly, yeah, I mean, I watched the second one, obviously, but I hadn't seen the first one. And as Kat says, there was no indication that I was watching a sequel. It was sort of easy enough to pick up and watch anyway.
It's definitely is. We did a double bill of both of them back to back a couple of weeks ago, and there is more connective tissue once you've seen the original, but you do not miss it on a first watch. Like I say, I watched this one first and then really enjoyed it. I went, oh, it's a sequel. okay. And then I think like the next day I sat down with Live Scream and was like, okay, no, this is great. And also it's a female director and, working in independent horror. And she's doing video game horror, which is, again, video games and horror are both always seen as boys' clubs. So it's nice to see, a woman, working in that arena.
And not just boys' clubs, horrible boys' clubs. Horrible, sexist boys' clubs. Because the stories coming out of that world, it's grim stuff.
And it's kind of interesting with Live Screamers in that it is kind of looking at that quite a lot. It is that this sort of group do not necessarily fit that mold. But it is the conversation on everyone's lips that, this is not a world in which they've been entirely welcomed. And how they are trying to do different things and not fall into the same traps. So I think it's definitely a movie for gamers, I think, as well.
YouTube as well, as a distribution method, that's bold. Because there was one a couple of weeks back. What was it, Milk and Cereal? Am I remember the name right?
Right, yeah.
Got a lot of attention.
I've still not seen this, but it seemed to go everywhere very, very quickly because it's just so readily available, and I guess you can pull it up on your phone and start watching, it's a really interesting way to distribute something. And I think particularly something that's found footage because it adds to it rather than takes away. You don't need it to be super glossy and super high sheen.
Yeah. It's the same with like streaming, found footage, that sort of thing. It needs to be on YouTube. Seeing a movie about live streaming on a big cinema screen, it's just kind of, who's this for? It doesn't really work as a sort of a delivery method, does it? So your second pick then.
So my second pick, like I said, Live Screamers is, the one to watch with your friends at the party. And then once everybody's gone and you're wanting to really get into that spooky spirit, I've got Corin Hardy's The Hallow. Which is just a film to me which just feels like autumn, just everything in it. It's about an English couple and their young infant child who go to Ireland. He's a tree surgeon. He's checking to see what trees need to come down in the local forest. But there's a lot of superstition around the forest belonging to a group of fairies called known as the Hallow. Who like to steal children, and they don't listen, and they find themselves with their son being stolen, and they've got to try and get him back. But is the child that they're after him, or is it a changeling? And there's lots of paranoia. There's some sneaky body horror elements in it. There's some eye trauma. This is Corin Hardy's feature debut. Obviously, he went on to do The Nun and work on Gangs of London, and this is nothing like either of them. It's very atmospheric. There's lots of homages to The Evil Dead, and it's a nice spooky Irish folk horror, body horror, parents' worst nightmare come to life film that would cap your Halloween off on a spooky but maybe depressing note.
Is that not what the group is all about? All depressing horror.
It's also the great thing for Halloween or any sort of like party horror. It's people against tiny little creatures, tiny chaotic little creatures, which is just such an easy win for me. I think. Can't speak for anybody else, but for me, yeah, definitely. Going back to Critters and Gremlins and all of these sort of probably not very good movies, but also very, very fun.
But it's like Krampus for Christmas time, isn't it? You always want that. Like,
just for saying little people, there's a Twilight Zone episode. I cannot remember what it's called, but it's this writer who's struggling to come up with anything, and these little demon men keep following him around, and he basically thinks that they're trying to kill him, but they're not. They're trying to get him to write. So they like trap him in a room and make him write a story about these little people. Yeah, weird looking things.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
Sorry, off topic there. Sorry.
Yeah, the Hallow's a weird one because it's basically English people are the worst, isn't it? That's the sort of the theme of it. They just don't listen, and they just come in and trample on our traditions, and so our little monsters have to go and eat them slowly and torture them. It's a real, mood lifter.
It's probably what they deserve.
There are some great scare moments. So, like a great bit with car breaks down, and these things are like outside the car, and you've got to protect the baby. And I watched it pre having a child and enjoyed it, and like since having a child, it sort of gets me in a different way. But it's just moody and atmospheric, and I just kind of wish that Corin had kind of continued in the independent world a little bit more before he immediately jumped into the Conjuring universe.
Yeah, because the nun is
Crap.
Yes.
yeah.
It's not great.
Isn't it? You can look at it and you go, oh, I really want this filmmaker to be able to make a lot of films. But unfortunately, to get the money to make a lot of films, you kind of have to go and make less creative things and do a bit
go
more.
and make the nun.
Yeah. We've all got to do our nun business.
The nuns are scary. That's it, isn't it? Is the jump a bit and they're scary. I mean, that's true. Nuns are scary. I've heard the stories of what they did to my dad. They're terrifying, but not in the way that movie perhaps does, really.
Yeah, I think as well, like it's the fact that Corin Hardy is so good at this, like creeping dread, and the nun and movies of its ilk don't really have that. They just have like quiet, noisy thing that is coming. Whereas I think the way he weaves stuff when it's his own project is far more nuanced, and it's still obviously jumpy and horror and very obviously a horror, but there is a certain amount of like, let's slow everything down, let's sow the seeds, and
It's a paint by numbers horror, basically. There's every beat's been accounted for 1 million times. You know what's coming. You know what to expect.
You can set your watch by it.
Yeah, it's that ghost train thing, isn't it? If you want to go through, you want X amount of times where your heart rate spikes and then out. You don't really need to worry about like, oh, that child is in terrible peril, or the kind of underlying thing of why go somewhere and then ignore all their folklore, even though everyone's warning you.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice our dear boy Michael Smiley is in this also.
Yes. Does something bad happen after Michael Smiley turns up?
He's not the instigator.
That's my yardstick for everything. If Michael Smiley shows up, shit is going down every single time.
Yeah, he's the police officer who sort of turns up. He's a police officer who turns up after they think that something's been thrown at their window. They think it's their neighbour that's done it, or breaks their window. So yeah, he turns up, and he's also believes in the superstition, and he warns them, and again, they don't listen. And to me, it's the child who is. I think since Toby in Labyrinth, never has an infant been in so much peril in a film before.
It's cool, peril in Labyrinth, though. He's surrounded by puppets and David Bowie and everything. And David Bowie. I tell you,
I'd be traumatised if that cod piece were coming towards me. Did you know that was stuffed with potpourri? I think it was like potpourri it was stuffed with or something. Apparently it was getting really sweaty down there, so he stuffed it with potpourri, and that's what gave it the bulge. Yeah.
I don't really know how to follow that, but...
Good night, everybody.
The thing about a Hallow...
That's what you call trick-or-treating.
Trying to sort of loop it around, but Hallow... I think the cool thing about Hallow is it's just such a big imagination sort of Irish horror. All the others are excellent, but it's all a haunted house or something quite minimal. There's nothing minimal about the Hallow. It's maximalist stuff, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, if you get the DVD, there is a feature-length documentary which charts from like Corin's very first idea all the way through like behind the scenes. It's got like early sketches and stuff. Obviously, he started out as a sculptor, and so he sculpted the Hallow that is seen in the film. One of the children he had to do some reshoots, and his wife was pregnant during shooting. When it came to reshoots, obviously the original baby was too big, so he just swapped in his own child, which is interesting.
Okay.
And you're like, just like, no, just gonna put her in here. And I think it was for one of the sort of like more stunty scenes, and he just didn't tell his wife. But yeah, it's, this is a filmmaker that even on his first feature was like, I want to document every second of this, and I want to then give that to the next generation of filmmakers, because this is how I learnt my trade. So yeah, the DVD has got an excellent documentary on it as well.
That's cool.
That feels like such a throwback now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like nothing arrives with a feature documentary on how it was made. And it's a shame because those things are really cool.
They are.
And this is not all that long ago, is it? Like maybe 10 years?
Not even that.
So, moving on to Caitlyn, your first of your double bill.
Yes. So, I am always of the opinion that Halloween is the one time for fun horror, because it's like often people are at like an entry level. They want to watch a scary movie. So it is your job to introduce them gently to something that is a little bit fun, shows the fun horror can have. And then I thought, no, I'm going to go with two of the bleakest films I've seen in some time. Or at least one of the bleakest films I've seen in some time. And the other one, slightly less bleak. So I have gone for two teenage coming-of-age stories, which are always good in horror, always worthwhile. So I have gone for Hatching from 2022, 43,000 logs on Letterboxd, which is interesting for an international film, I think. And Blew My Mind, which is only 9.7 thousand on Letterboxd. So I'll start with Hatching, just because I think that's probably, as Kat did, you do the sort of more gentle one first, and then you really drive it home by the end. So Hatching is directed by Hannah Bergholm, and it concerns a dancer who's really, really put upon. She has a lot of pressure placed on her by her parents, particularly her mother. And at one point, a bird flies into the house and is unfortunately killed. And when she goes to see where it came from, she finds an egg. And she decides that because it's awful that this egg's parent has died, she's going to take the egg into the house and look after it. And that egg begins to grow, and what hatches from it is probably the only thing that actually has her best interests at heart in the entire film. So, I think it's a really, really interesting piece of work, because it does look at girls' bodies in transformation, because she is a dancer, so a lot of her focus is on staying in a certain shape and feeling the pressure from that. And she kind of has these sort of overbearing parents and a very annoying little brother. And she kind of finds solace in this egg and looking after it, because I guess she's looking after it in a way that she's not being looked after. But the effects are wonderful as it progresses. I kind of don't want to spoil too much about it, because I think it's a really fun film to watch it just unfold. And it does have, I think, one of the most perfect endings that I've seen of a film in quite some time, because it just knows when to stop. And I think that's a huge thing for so many films now. Recently, watching things, you go, everything can lose 20 minutes easily. And this doesn't, and it just waits until the perfect point, and then you get, boom, credits. And that leaves you with like that almost laugh in the back of your throat of like, that's kind of absurd. But actually the implications, the more you think about them, are all the more horrific. So I like that, it's one of those that you go, weird film. And then you think about it a little more, and it kind of stays with you.
What I really like about that one is it's subtext horror that actually still manages to be a movie. Because there's some subtext horrors where they've put everything into what it all means, and they've actually forgot to put a little bit in the actual film, so it's just so heavy on one side. I think Hatching kind of does it very nicely.
Yeah, I mean, you do get a great whacking horror film in the middle of it as well. There's also something kind of magical about it in a weird way. It does feel like a fairy tale the whole way it's constructed. But yeah.
And I don't want to spoil it, but it's got really cool practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you can say about that without spoiling it.
I know. Do we spoil it? Do we spoil it? Let's do a little spoiler. Can you do a beep and then we'll spoil?
I'll just kind of go la 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 la.
I don't think it spoils it. If you know what's coming, I don't think it ruins the movie. I think it.
Well, I mean, she's looking after an egg. It's not a huge leap to see what's coming out of there. But the design of what comes out of the egg is incredible. I think it's really fun and it's really gooey as well. And I think sort of particularly it's going into the walk-in closet and you get like little feet on the floor and there's something always dripping and it's cute. It's really, really cute.
Until it isn't.
I think it's cute the whole way. I'm really sorry. She's just a girl. She's literally just a girl. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I suppose it is, yeah. Anybody else see The Hatching?
I really enjoyed Hatching. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I've only seen it once, but I do remember really enjoying it in the same way that you enjoy Lamb. That kind of, you just go along with it, and it's bizarre and it's fantasy, but you just accept that it's the norm. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison, actually. That magical realism. You've got a normal world, but suddenly this creature that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah,
but it's there and you're here for it, like,
yeah. It's the
no, sorry, Kat, go on.
Yeah.
No, you're all right, go on.
I was going to say, it's the color palette as well. It's like candy floss pink, and like her mum is also like trying to be like a family influencer. So as mean as she is to her daughter, she's constantly like making them all sort of like wear all white and shooting the house so it looks pristine. Hashtag family goals and all that stuff. So it's exploring that side of social media. But I will say, when I first watched this film, it was when it premiered at Sundance and it was virtual, and you had to get tickets for when it was playing in America. So I woke up at 3 a.m. to watch this film on a Sunday. That is not a film to watch at 3 a.m. because it goes, I'm like, have I fallen asleep? Am I watching the film or have I just fallen asleep? Because, yeah, it goes to some really weird places.
Yeah, I can see that would not be the one. This is why it's first in the double bill. So you're nice and awake.
Also, lamb samosas are pretty good. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
You can't talk about eating lamb in the world of lamb because Ada's this beautiful little creature. And I want to know the statistics on people who went vegan after watching a lamb. Honestly, I do, because I'm sure there are some who just looked at her and went, "That beautiful child, I could never."
If they just had Ada as like the campaign picture for me, then yeah, I imagine a lot of people would go vegan.
I cried the first half hour of Lamb solidly, and nothing had even happened yet. I just cried.
So adorable.
So yeah,
they were running a competition with A24 to win a life size Ada with coat and boots and everything, and I've never wanted anything more in my life. I'm so jealous of whoever won that.
I'm gonna find them
and kill them.
And your second pick after Lamb? Hatching.
Oh yeah, sorry, I've like added a proxy, like squeeze in Lamb in the middle. So my second pick is Blew My Mind, which is a film that I think is quite well known. It feels like it should be, but like it comes in that sort of range of like female body horror that no one really talks about. And it's weird because it's very effective. It's kind of like Raw meets 13 is your like headline on it. So it is directed by Lisa Brulman and concerns teenager Mia, who's played by Luna Wedler, who's doing fantastic things in this role. Incredibly brave performance, incredibly game performance. And it's one of those films that, again, I think if there was a male director on it, it could be a little testing in what it actually shows. But I think it feels like a very female film. It feels very well rounded in that way. And the way that things are looked at and examined feels very, I don't know. I think 13 has been accused of being slightly for titillation in areas. And I don't think you can look at this the same way. And I think that's what's lovely about it. But yeah, Mia is a very troubled teenager. She struggles to connect to her mother in particular. She feels like she may have been adopted. And then she's also got the usual teenage struggles of she doesn't quite fit in with the alpha girl group at school, one of whom is Gianna, who is probably their ringleader. So in trying to get in with them, she starts to engage in different behaviors like underage drinking and going out and sleeping with much older men. And then after her first period, she begins to experience different transformations. So it's your classic, coming of age horror. Yes, yeah. I mean, I think the tone is far more serious throughout. Like there's not a lot of fun to be had. Yeah. I think Ginger Snaps kind of has fun because you have that like locked in partnership, whereas in this Mia is trying to find that. But it is very sweet in which the way this movie actually evolves with her getting to know this Gianna, who at first glance you kind of think, oh, she's awful, but it allows you to learn a little bit about her as well. And the transformation sequences are horrible. Like it's all small details for a very long time. And again, do I want to spoil what she's turning into? Not really.
I've not seen it, so I would appreciate a no spoiler on this because it sounds right up my alley.
Okay, I'm gonna be decent.
I tell you what, I'm gonna do it.
No, it's fine. I'm gonna leave it. No. You're okay. Just thumbs up to bring Faye back into the room. No, I think the type of transformation she's lent on lends itself to being able to be quite subtle with it up until a point. And it's very weird for me that this isn't spoken about in the same terms as Raw, which is a year earlier. And I don't think it's trying to echo that at all. But that would make an excellent double bill also,
Can't say I've even heard of that one.
No, I was just going to look it up because I've never heard of it before.
I've seen it. I think that's a really solid choice. Like that is a really good kind of like in that sort of teen coming of age, teen body horror, puberty body horror. Like that is a really good shout. That one. And I agree. I think that is definitely one that more people need to see because it really does have a sort of. I can kind of only really describe it as like a beautiful sense of the kind of melancholy you only have as a teenager.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. It's so it's deeply no, what am I saying? It has such a deep sense of pathos throughout, and you kind of feel like for a lot of it that you're just watching this young girl go down a terrible path.
And it's beautiful and sad and also horrific once certain things start happening.
Yeah. And very much like in The Hatching, you end up sort of really identifying with your central female character and promptly wanting to shake every single adult that she encounters because they're all in different ways terrible. And I think it's really interesting to be put in the identification space of a teenager for that because so often when you watch things back that are meant to be like all this teenage angst, you go, yeah, you are being a dickhead though, and your parents are right. In
Ferris
this,
Bueller in particular, such a
Oh, what a
dick.
dick.
yeah.
That guy's just a dick.
So exactly, there's like this huge history of these films in which, you know, the kids are not right. They're not, you know, and they do need some sort of keeping in line. But in both these films, it's actually the adults who are the problem, and the girls who find themselves through a monster, basically, which is really lovely. And I think both films are dealing with the consequences of freedom. So Mia in Blew My Mind is very much dealing with the consequences of having too much freedom and kind of having no limits whatsoever. Whereas Tina in Hatchin is very much sort of trapped. And, you know, and she's got too little freedom and she acts out within that. So it's a really interesting sliding scale of control and parental neglect as well.
Yeah, I think I
Which is
caught
lovely and
it.
cheering.
Yeah, I caught it at Fantasia in like 2018. Sort of looking
Yeah.
through my reviews, and it's for people who, you know, aren't necessarily that in touch with younger people anymore. It does really capture that toxicity of being a teenager. Just everything about it, you know, that peer pressure and, you know, the stress to fit in, and yeah, and my review does not spoil what happens in it, but it does say that there are plenty of people in the world who would probably want to be in her shoes. I think there is a whole community of people that would be delighted were they to experience what she experiences.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, you
I think it's I think as well, like Hatchin, this has a basically perfect end scene because it's so emotional, and it's really about people finding each other when they need one another, and I think that's really lovely. And it doesn't matter if that person you find is a monster. Not really.
Where's that available?
Oh, that is a very good question.
Which I didn't mean to put you on the spot with.
That's absolutely fine. I'll just watch Is Your Friend. Let me see. I would love if more people watch it. I know it was on Prime a little while ago.
Yeah, I think it
Oh,
was.
you can rent it on like Apple TV for like $1.99 or on Sky for $3.49.
So, moving to Faye, your first pick.
Oh, I've gone full indie lovers in my pick. Yeah, and I'm gonna try and not be smutty in the second one, but it's unavoidable, so I'll apologise now. You knew what this was going to be, Rob. You know what I'm about. I'm sorry. So, the first one is the first one is one of my favourite films that I've seen on a festival circuit, and that is After Midnight by I think it's directed by Eric Pennycroft. Is that right?
No, that's The Leech.
Is that right? Is that The Leech? Oh, I got them mixed up. The Leech is coming second. That's a spoiler. Thank you, Caitlyn. Cheers. Well done.
I didn't say anything.
It was me. Sorry.
I'm joking.
It wasn't even me. It was Kat.
I'm joking.
It was the encyclopedia.
Oh, is it Kat? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I was too busy.
Fuck you, Alice.
Jeremy Gardner. It's directed by Jeremy Gardner and Christian
Oh,
Seller.
is it? Oh, good for him. Good for him.
He's great, Jeremy Gardner. He really is.
So as well as directing it, Jeremy Gardner stars in it as well as Hank. And on the surface, as it starts, it looks like it's going to be a love story more than anything. They have been together for 13 years. She's gone away for 4 weeks. He doesn't know where she's gone, and he's going out of his mind. He's drinking. He's becoming erratic. And in the time she's gone, he keeps telling everybody that after midnight, every night, this monster keeps showing up at his door. Nobody believes him. They think he's the town drunk. She comes back and he's trying to convince her that there is a monster whilst also working through their relationship woes. It's great. It's really, really good storytelling. The performances are amazing. You got Brea Grant in it. Who doesn't love Brea Grant? Like I say, Jeremy Gardner. We've got, is it Justin Cat? Is it Justin in it?
Justin Benson, yeah.
Justin Benson, yeah. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's not as subtle as maybe they look like people and The Invitation and such, where it looks like it's going into paranoid horror. Like, is he seeing this monster? Is he not? I think it's a little bit more revealing than those, but the end result is absolutely incredible in this film, and probably
Great jump scare.
the biggest jump scare of any film I've ever watched. The greatest jump scare. An entire audience at Cell just lifted out of their seats.
You literally have the room move.
I think I've seen it 3 times. Gets me every time.
It does, doesn't it? Even though you know it's coming. I rewatched it, and even as I'm working, I'm sat there and I'm like, I know this is coming. It's any second. It's any second now, and it's still made me jump.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And it's got some
film.
Great sequences as well. It's not like he's just thinking he's going mad. It's got these bits at night where he's got a chair propped up against the front door and he's just shooting it full of holes. It's.
I mean, I don't think it's really spoiling anything for me to say that there is a monster, because you see it a number of times on the lead up.
It's on the box art as well.
And it's on the box, yeah. And I mean, the design of that creature is incredible as well. It reminds me of the gremlin on the plane in Twilight Zone, the movie, which has always been a freak out of mine. That and the start scene freaked me out so bad, and it has got that look about it. But yeah, I mean, I've probably picked this purely for the end scene, if I'm quite honest.
The karaoke,
because I just nothing tops it in my mind.
How is it promoted on the festival? Same, was it just like an indie drama? Because it's not horror, really, is it? It becomes one, but it's not really one.
It did make mention of the fact that he believes he's seeing a creature, and there've been enough Jeremy Gardner, Benson, Brea Grant films on festival scene for years now that I think if they get made and even hinted at that it's a horror, it will be picked up by somebody, because they're just fantastic. And Brea Grant's great in this as well.
So I think as well, Celluloid had previously shown The Battery, which was obviously a zombie movie, but it's not your traditional zombie movie. It's a lot more like mumblecore zombies then. So I think if you know the kind of projects that Jeremy Gardner is attracted to, you kind of know what you're in for. But I think this pushes the envelope on that quite a lot more. And it's almost playing on your perception of these films, that you're like, I'm going to watch a romantic drama with a horror tinge, and that's not entirely what you get. But it is fascinating. And I think the way they are, the way that whole sort of what he thinks versus what she thinks plays out is incredibly interesting. As well.
The flashbacks he has to how their relationship has got to where it is very much Armageddon. Like, he might as well be putting a cracker on her stomach in some of those scenes. It's rose tinted completely, whereas she's just not having the best time. And I guess the film is ultimately about them coming to a resolve on that, coming to an arrangement that works best for both of them, just with a massive ass monster thrown in. Like you do.
What I really like about it, it's kind of subversive, that whole is it, isn't it movement of movies, where it's a subtext about his mental health. It's not really a monster, it's just all imaginary. It feels like a total antithesis to that, and it's even in revealing that, it doesn't spoil it, saying that there is actually a monster, but at the same time that's what it's going for, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a more realistic romance, isn't it? In that you have two people who are at cross purposes, who are kind of trying on some level to work through it, but it's not clean, and it's quite messy, and it's, it is romantic. It's a romantic movie, because I think it is realistic and pragmatic about what long-term relationships are.
I mean, maybe the real horror is her getting stuck somewhere she doesn't want to be. So to her, that is her monster. That whole town is her monster, because she just don't want to be there. But as well, the way the friends are involved, and how the friends see their relationship, and you get their side of it as well, which only adds further tension to the couple's relationship, because not only have they got their own feelings to contend with and each other, they've also got that pressure from their friends as well and what their friends think of them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Is
layers.
Is this Jeremy Gardner's directorial debut? Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. Because I think somebody else directed The Battery.
So I don't know, do I?
I think he did one between that it was like very crowdfundy. I can't remember the name of it. It's completely vanished.
There's a very long oneer in this, which is incredible, where you get the two of them sat talking on a porch. And I think this is the real strength of like when actors also direct, because they have a certain amount of trust in performers and the performance, and obviously that this entire group know each other incredibly well. And it's this quiet creep back as they're talking that's really, really, it's captivating, because you almost don't realize that it's happening because you're so absorbed in their conversation. But I think to do something so technical, something that can go so wrong, like your first or second time out as a director is insanely ambitious.
That whole monologue from Brea Grant is amazing. Sorry, Sarah.
No, you're right. But you can. He did. Sorry. He did direct The Battery, and then in between that and this, he directed something called Tex Montana Will Survive, which I think is like about which I think is about like a Bear Grylls type of guy who's found to be a complete faker, who then actually does go out into the wilderness and has a bit of a bad time of it.
Oh, I'm gonna watch that.
But no, I have seen The Battery. I really like The Battery because I'm always looking for zombie movies that do something just slightly different, and that was a good one for that for me.
I'm not normally a fan of especially love stories with horror films. A lot of the time it does not float my boat. Monsters I cannot stand. I'm sorry. I know everybody loves monsters. I can't deal with it. But After Midnight ticks all my boxes, and I don't know why. It just does.
I think Spring from Benson and Motorhead. That's
I went
pretty
fan
good
of Spring.
too.
Oh. I know, Caitlyn's face. Jeez,
all these years.
Hey. Tearing me apart, mate.
Tearing me apart, Lisa. Yeah, sorry.
Great karaoke scene as well.
My brain just kicked in then as well. I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's fair enough.
Shall I move on to the second one? It's about to get real horny up in here. Sorry. Yes, The Leech is my second one. For a Jeremy Gardner double bill with added Graham Skipper. Thank you very much. Jeremy Gardner in this plays part of he's a guy down on his luck, and he gets picked up by a priest who offers to take him into his home. And then his pregnant girlfriend joins him along the way, and they just start taking over the priest's life and ruining it, basically. And things get very, very smutty very quickly. They get him on drugs. They get him drinking. There may have been a threesome in there. Was there a threesome in there? I think there was.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there was.
The way I answered that like I'm in a deposition. Yes.
Yes, Your Honour, there was a threesome.
It's not subtle about it, really, is it? It really
isn't. It really isn't. But it's so much fun. This is like you've just had your love story and you've had your major jump scare with After Midnight. It gets fun and dirty and very boozy with The Leech, which I love, and that's exactly how I watched it. Half cut with Mitch. Playing smutty bingo in our minds.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into smutty bingo, but playing smutty bingo.
Christmas movie.
Buy Faye a drink somewhere and ask her about smutty bingo.
There's the question that you've got to sort of drop on this one. It's a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie, yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't know what else to say to that, Rob. I'm so sorry. It is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, so if it's a Christmas movie, so then you watch that like right near midnight. So you're going out of October and spooky season and into kind of when everyone will be playing Mariah Carey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, you should time that completely to like the credits coming up on the leech, and then just like she's here.
Yeah.
That actually happened like one year. It was like Halloween night. I wasn't awake. My window was open because it was weirdly warm, and someone driving a car just started blasting out Mariah Carey. All I Want for Christmas Is You. And it's like 1 a.m. on November the 1st. I was like, who is that? Who's doing that?
It was
A
definitely
monster.
hell.
Absolute monster.
If you're on TikTok, I've already heard the Wham song like 30 times already this year. People just can't stop using it throughout the year. But
Can this be a platform to say no one should be playing Whamageddon ever again? Thanks.
yes.
Because it personally offends me. Just me.
No, that's fine.
Anybody else caught the leech? I mean, I think we all have with that one.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Anybody else caught the leech? Sorry, are we not finished talking about it? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's all right. Yeah.
No, but I mean, a combination of Jeremy Gardner, Graham Skipper. Yeah, I'll check that one out.
It's a very different role from After Midnight. He's smarmy. He's smoking everywhere. He's doing drugs. The thing that got me most about his character is the way that he just blasts music throughout the house, because I can't stand
basically.
that.
Yeah.
I cannot stand loud noises, and it's almost like the people in Mother, where they're pushing him.
Oh,
So at what point is he going to crack? What is it going to take to make you crack? And in Mother, it was for me, it was the sink, where they'd sat on the sink that hadn't dried yet, and it just collapsed.
It's like I've said to people that Mother is basically like, it's a horror film about what it's like if you have social anxiety and you keep being forced to interact with people and they won't go away, and you're just getting more and more stressed.
That's so true. It is. But yeah, living with, as much as I'd like to live with Jeremy Gardner, not in the leech. What a nightmare. What an absolute nightmare. And poor Graham Skipper is just trying to get him to get into God at all opportunities and just failing miserably. Oh,
I think like as well, everyone's so used to seeing like Graham Skipper and Jeremy Gardner and things, but Taylor Zotka in this film, oh my god, she is so incredible.
yeah.
And it's really interesting because Eric Penikoff's, this is his like second feature, I think, with the first one was Sadistic Intentions, which is again Jeremy Gardner, who has kidnapped Taylor Zotka and along with a friend to go record this track or something. I don't know. There's a kidnapping, they're in a house together. It's great. Again, that kind of quieter, well, not quieter because there's like blaring metal all the way through it, but that sort of like, it's more about the people rather than anything external. It's all sort of thing. And this is the same in The Leech. Like that house becomes just this like powder keg of all of this going wrong. But it's so funny. I mean, the Never Have I Ever scene is incredible for just leaving the camera on these actors who are clearly having a wonderful time as well, of just pushing where these characters are going to go.
It's also visually, it does it really well that you kind of become, it visualizes like a trippiness. Like as if you're drunk, it does it very well at showing you that that's how that's done. I can't get my words out, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're part of that drinking game.
Yeah,
you're absolutely part of that drinking game, and you start even when you're in the cinema watching it, or you've got it on, and you start to go, and you don't realize that you're just like mirroring what's going on screen, and that I think is a really good empathy that you have with the characters, even though you find them particularly difficult. And I don't think anyone is likable in The Leech.
No. Oh, I know. I mean,
go on.
Well, Graham's just been.
No,
I say Graham. It's not the worst, is he? Though.
I mean, remember, like his truth,
his mission.
You're very forgiving. You are very forgiving.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? You have this like really like dirgy, horny, like slightly but it's still upbeat. And then you get towards the climax and you start to see what this is really all about. And that is, there's a few shots towards the end of that I think are incredibly powerful, and very damning of American policies over a lot of things, and the whole thing, the way it evolves.
Sorry, I just remembered the final scene of sorry. Like, Jesus Christ, it has been a long day. I've been working all day. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, go on.
No, it's a great film.
Jesus.
But no,
so
yeah, because you have so much fun up until the point you're not having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good thing, because you are left with the memory of that drinking game, you know, and Mother.
Was it Mother?
Yeah, and it was made during COVID. This is a COVID film. This is you know, Eric knows, obviously, you know, Jeremy and Taylor, who are married in real life, and he's been friends with Graham for years. And yeah, they all just kind of hunkered down, kind of basically within that house, and made this film during, like, wherever it was that they filmed it. It had like one of the worst snowstorms in like however many years. So they were literally sort of like trapped together, which I think then bleeds into this thing, because, you know, when you've got people who you don't really want in your house and they just won't leave, it's just the worst thing. Like, I love my mum and she comes to visit for the first day, and then after that it's like, okay, we're here for another week. And so I completely identify with just that, you know, that, like, please don't make me watch Coronation Street again, please, you know.
Okay, so moving to Sarah, your first pick.
Well, I've actually kind of done something a bit similar to Kat, in that I've got kind of like, you know, like the fun, have a bit of a laugh pick, and then the slightly less have a laugh pick. But the first one, and our thing was under 50,000 views on Letterboxd,
yes.
Because although I was like looking at stuff, and surprisingly, I could have done Ghost Watch, which feels crazy.
That's silly, that's low.
In that, which feels kind of crazy, because that's one of those things that kind of like the horror community, it's kind of one of those films that we always kind of talk about, especially this time of year, because it was released on Halloween. But yeah, I think it was something like 38,000, so I could have done that, but I decided to go for something a bit less well known, which is WNUF Halloween Special, which is a funny little oddity of a film. It is basically like, it's like you're watching a VHS of a public access channel in America on Halloween night 1987, and you get kind of all of it. You get the ads, you get like the weird local ads for, like, you know, Crazy Chuck's Chicken Palace or whatever, and come pick up your pumpkins at the farm. But whilst that's happening, you've got like this local news segment about people going to investigate a haunted house. But it is just it so perfectly captures the time and the place. And I mean, some of the sort of like little segments that are made in it, like there's the one that's about a dentist who's offering people cash for their candy. Like, so that the kids aren't eating too much candy. He's like, hey, I'll give you money if you give me your candy. But it's just like, it's capital V vibes, basically. Like, it is just pure sort of 80s. It's got that whole kind of 80s satanic panic era kind of thing going on for it. Like, the people who are like, no, Halloween's evil. Or it's just like, nah, it's just kids running around in plastic masks, dude. But it and they even kind of like, in making it, they used VHS stock, like, for filming it. They also made copies of it on VHS like multiple times in order to degrade it enough to
really
actually really get the view. You really do feel like you're watching a VHS. There's that low hum in the background that I think we all remember from VHS tape, and some of the ads, you don't actually see all of them, because like your point of view watching it is there's people fast forwarding or rewinding bits, kind of thing. So it is just like, again, I like, maybe it doesn't 100% stick the landing, but honestly, the presentation of it and the fun of it, and it's clearly done with like so much affection, for both Halloween, for like little local TV channels, and for just the 80s, that I think that really kind of overwhelms it and just makes it just a bit of a fun watch, really.
I was saying I've only watched it the once, so I can't remember much about it, but I do remember the vibe of it being really cool. I can't remember anything that happens because it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was like I found out about it through like this actually a random podcast I listened to like years ago. I saw that, and also another one I was reckoning on the same podcast. This one called Murder Party.
Yeah,
Oh, I think
I like
Yeah,
Murder Party.
like, actually, why didn't I think of that one? Actually, dang it! I keep thinking of other movies I could have done. But yeah, no, that's a great one, because that's isn't that Jeremy Saulnier? Yeah, like that's a funny film. But yeah, so I found out about both those through this podcast. It was, what was it? Oh, it's called like The Golden Briefcase or something, years ago. But yeah, I kind of like, I found out about it, sort it out, and yeah, it's like, even though we didn't really over here, we didn't really grow up with that kind of public local TV, you still just kind of you instantly kind of get it and get on board with it.
Yeah, there's a really beautiful short film, and I haven't spoken about this in like a hot minute, which is usually less. But there's a beautiful short film called Synonymous With, which is by a director called Tom Hilton, and that is about sort of the affection for a former horror host on one of these public access channels. So you have like this thing of this sort of campy host introducing things. So it's like the night Evelyn came out of the grave and she looks fabulous type of thing, and it's really that like that excellent shorthand on those channels for what people were doing with the format, and that it's kind of a space where you could do anything, and that always feels like a great way for horror to grow out of. You know, the idea of something in the tape or something is in the studio and all that sort of, which weirdly ties into Ghostwatch, obviously, you know.
Ghostwatch. Oh well. What even is that? I mean, it's the fact that it's under
Talking
50,000
about
is just kind of a
Ghostwatch.
surprise. I've not even heard of this. There you go.
I think it's on Shudder still. 'cause I
Yeah,
think I
yeah, it's on
watched it
Shudder now. I think kind of like when I first watched it, I had to sneakily get into American Shudder, but now it is on UK Shudder as well.
Oh, okay, cool. I think there's something quite appealing on like a Halloween night as well about, as you say, the variety of things and the fun of it. So you've got your little like slices of life as it goes through. Because yeah, you don't want to just have to concentrate on one thing for too long if you've got to get up and answer the door every 2 minutes. Like,
Well, that's the other thing. This is a very it's like, I mean, some people have said they feel like it drags a bit, but I'm not sure about that. But it is like a very easy 83 minutes or so.
Nice.
So I think both my films are under 90 minutes. So
Excellent.
And yes, I mean, has anybody else seen that one?
I don't think I have. Have they done other things? Did they do the team behind it? There's a name that's not coming to me. Might have played Soho.
I'm not sure. I know they did do a kind of sequel, which is only available like if you buy it through their website.
Okay, maybe not that.
Like the main director is Chris LaMartina.
Okay.
But yeah, he did Call Girl of Cthulhu, if anyone knows that one.
No.
Name some aliens. Yeah.
No, don't.
You wanted niche and you got niche.
Hey. I've won the award
What
for most
happens
niche
next
film of
will
the night.
scare. That's what it is. What happens next will scare you. That played Soho.
Which one's that?
Maybe last year, and again that was very like, here's a little story, here's an ad, so it seems like they've really like got that.
Oh, I remember. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
There we are. I think that was like a midnight film.
It was.
Which again,
yeah.
these things are perfect for, because they're relatively short. They can be watched on a shorter attention span than, you know.
I'll tell you what fits in with the theme of like WNUF and what happens next will scare you. There was a short that played at Cell some years ago called, I think it's called Good Choice. It might be called something else. And it was basically, it was like a 90s commercial for a shrimp place. And it just kept playing over and over, saying, what you going for today, sir? Good choice. And he can't get out of this commercial. You see him like slowly go mad trying to get out, but he can't. I've never been able to find it anywhere since, but it was so good but that's got that kind of like 90s VHS feel to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
I'm sure it's called Good Choice. We'll ask Darren. Darren will know. That's Darren
Everyone knows who
Gaskell.
Darren
If you don't
is.
know who Darren is on here, sorry. We'll ask Darren.
Okay. So
Not you, Darren.
your second pick, Sarah.
My second pick, kind of like, this kind of like is one of those films that I will always kind of take the opportunity to shout out about, and it's only got 11,000 on Letterboxd, which is Savage Land from 2015, which it's a mockumentary horror. You have a small town, kind of like on the Arizona-Mexican border, and there is a massacre, just like everyone in the town is wiped out overnight. And suspicion is basically on the lone survivor, who is this guy. He is a immigrant worker, and you get sort of the outrage of the local media, the sheriff department, the right-wing kind of media and talk shows. But then they find a roll of film, which is from his camera, that this survivor, that kind of tell the story of what happens that night. And kind of like as it reveals itself, it just kind of like, you essentially get kind of like a timeline of events, and it just tells the story of what happened, and it's horrifying. And I don't want to say too much, because when I was watching it, I didn't know this was kind of recommended to me on Twitter. I watched it in lockdown, and when I kind of realized what was happening, that really kind of made me sit up, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is what we're doing, is it? But the kind of the pictures that, like, very much the second half of the film is built around are really eerie. They're like these black and white, blurry, shadowy figures, and it's like they give you enough, but there's gaps that your brain just fills in all the horrible details of what happened before and after that snapshot of a moment. But it really builds, like, effectively just this story, and it's very much a movie of Trump's America, even though it was made before because you have all of these, the immigration, the tension, the very clear kind of those sort of talk shows and radio shows of people blaming immigrants for everything wrong in America, and you get kind of like, you get sort of like righteously angry watching it, that everyone is just ignoring evidence for their own agendas. Even kind of like the people trying to help this guy, they are ignoring what is actually happening because it doesn't fit with their narrative that they're pushing. But there is such a brilliant kind of eerie atmosphere as it builds its story, and yeah, I just found it to be a really kind of like spooky and satisfying watch.
That sounds good.
It sounds really fascinating. I think this is the thing, we're kind of used to getting more overtly political horror constantly now, because like, how can you not make a horror film when you've got like such a monster in charge visibly every day, you know? It's like, it feels like everyone's, and I'm not just talking about America, but I'm talking about everywhere. The monster is everywhere. How can you not reflect that consistently in what you're kind of putting together? But yeah, I think it's interesting that that sort of shows the underbelly of it. In the same way as your like WNUF is showing this like very DIY, very underground thing, you've then got what happens when that media kind of goes out of control.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, and sort of you get sort of like snippets of all the reactions, both good and like condemning this guy and helping this guy, just both sides of it, but neither is quite right. Is the thing about it. And then you see this guy, and he is just the most. It's just so sad, and it's like, I think I wrote once, like you'd never imagine like one of the usual kind of final girl types. You wouldn't imagine one of them kind of going through all that and then being blamed for everything. But this guy, because of who he is and that, he's just immediately turned on, even though there is no logical reason or way that he could have hurt anyone.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. That sounds like an ideal watch, I think.
No.
Kat, you've seen that one? Well, it's...
We found the underground hit.
Well, we have. both of them, honestly, because they're both... I'm not sure I've heard of either of them, really.
This is where we find out that Sarah's hallucinated them both. I have to be like, oh no.
Oh, no.
Oh wow. Okay, so Savage Land is available for rent, Faye.
Yeah.
On Amazon.
Well, then I'll never see it, I guess.
Yeah, it's such a
I can have start like a GoFundMe for Faye's Amazon fund.
No, the thing is, I'm not tight. I can afford it. I don't see why I should. If I'm paying for a subscription, everything should be included in that subscription. So I think Prime are just taking the mick.
Yeah, it's something to do with video on demand and premium video on demand, and it's all tied in with contracts. And my past life as an employee for Lionsgate, I know all of the boring stuff, but we won't get into that now. That can send you to sleep in a couple of weeks.
So why? So why don't they offer a subscription that's more then, that includes all this?
Yeah,
I pay the more.
It's all to do with the contracts from the distributors. Like the distributors want a cut of the money for their titles and stuff. So it's not necessarily Prime charging you; it's the distributor wanting Prime to pay them money to host their title. And yeah.
Look, Kat, you know these people. You need to get onto them and tell them that they're ruining my life and to stop it.
Yeah.
Fix the distribution model, Kat.
But you know, that's why freebie is great, because okay, I can handle a couple of adverts. Freebie. You know, I do love how freebie now. Yeah. And now I do like now how it starts with like, this program is only free because it's adverts. Yes, we understand how you work, freebie. Thank you for explaining your model. But yeah.
That's because
like how we get Tubi now as well,
isn't it? Another Faye has complained somewhere about having adverts. I don't claim her. I'm good with the ads.
I'm still looking at Savage Land and trying to figure out, because is it by anyone who's made anything else, or?
I don't think so, actually. Let me just double check, because
when you first mentioned it, Sarah, I thought you were thinking Savage
on Twitter.
I thought that.
Has everybody seen Savaged?
What? Sorry.
Savaged.
Yes.
No.
Oh, treat yourself. It is wildly inappropriate.
Okay.
But hilarious, and probably the most quotable film I've ever watched. I've seen it maybe twice, and I still quote it to this day. It's about this.
It doesn't look like the director of. Sorry.
No, go on. Sorry, you're all right.
No, I was just going to say, it doesn't look like the director of Savage Land, has done kind of too much else. Seems he's mostly done kind of TV work.
Yeah, and documentary TV work as well. So that's really interesting in terms of like,
Yeah.
obviously how they've constructed that film is obviously because they know how that TV is constructed and put together. So, you know, you can play on it better then. I think sometimes, you know, when you get a found footage or a mockumentary that has never seen a news channel in its life and just kind of tries to recreate it and it just instantly feels jarring. I think, yeah, I like that kind of nod to authenticity then.
Oh yeah, no, that is kind of like one of the things I like most about Savage Land is that it really does feel authentic.
Okay. And it's always better when those authentic movies are done by a one and done sort of director, because it just makes it feel a little bit more dangerous.
Starts feeling like Lake Mungo. Hey.
Mal Jutley was going to be here, but unfortunately he couldn't make it tonight. But I think it's still fair to represent his picks that he put down for this. The first one from 2013 was House at the End of Time. Anybody seen that? Anybody know what that is? Yeah.
Yeah, it's an Argentinian, I think, serial killer police procedural time travel movie. There's a lot going on in the House at the End of Time.
That's
yeah, I think it's been a very long time since I've seen it. I probably last saw it at release, but every now and again it seems to get like a little resurgence in that people are talking about it. And it's what I need to revisit, I think, because like with any time travel-y thing, it always takes a little while to get your head around the actual mechanics of it. So it almost rewards more on a second watch, I think, than a first, because you can kind of enjoy it on one level. And because there's so much going on, of course, it's not a concern, is it? Because you can kind of just enjoy it in both ways.
Yeah. And the second one, which I feel will be a bit more watch, because I think it was one of the rec directors that were involved in Sleep Tight from 2011.
Yeah.
Fantastic film.
Paco Plaza. Oh, I can't remember the name of the other fella. But yeah, Sleep Tight. What is Sleep Tight?
Sleep Tight. Go, Faye.
Sleep Tight is about this girl who lives, if it's the one we're thinking of, I hope it is. This girl lives in an apartment block, this woman. She's pretty much got a life together. It seems perfect. She's healthy. She's got a great job. She looks fantastic. And this janitor who works there just cannot stand that and just sets out to make her life hell, sneaking into her apartment, just like putting stuff in her face cream, just like making things happen just so that her life falls apart. And it's amazing. not to watch somebody's life fall apart, obviously, but just the levels you will go to sabotage her is insane. And the fact that it can just move freely in and out of her apartment as well without being detected is scary.
There was another film around the time, I think it was called The Resident, which was
I was going to mention The Resident, because that was Christopher Lee. Yeah. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan,
Yep, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, that's him.
Yeah. It feels like the first time I saw Sleep Tight, I was at my first ever horror festival. And that was the Abattoir Horror Festival. And I finished watching Sleep Tight and I went back to my little B&B on my own. And I checked under my bed 3 times because this is one of those films that really, I think obviously it's got a name now, hasn't it? Frogging. And it's PHROGG. And it's sort of the thing where someone lives inside someone's house without their knowledge and is like moving things around. It's horrific. It was an entire like docu-series on it. And I swear to God, every episode is some woman just going out of her mind going, things are being moved, darling. And her husband going, no, it must be your period. Until there's a great stonking killer in the house chasing everyone around, and it's like, yeah, period, is it? There's like one of those things as well, which I was like, oh my god, she's so me. In that she comes back from holiday and they've left their cat to be cat sit, and she realizes that whoever is living in the house without them knowing has got her cat. So she marches in past this very, very violent predator, grabs the cat and leaves. And the guy who's ostensibly there to kill them is just like, oh, I guess she's going with her cat. He's so stunned by her just walking in and going, I'll take this, thank you. And going back out, everyone's like, don't go in there, he's armed. And she said, he's got my cat. I'm having my cat. She's scared. So yeah, what a legend. But yeah, this kind of idea of, you know, as Faye says, someone going in and being able to have access to all your things and staying there and everything like that. And it does it in quite a quiet way at first, but then this really ramps up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's, like, we all know the very well-known, like, what do you call it? Peephole scare. But this has one of the most thunderous ones I've ever experienced. Like, I levitated. Absolutely levitated. So yeah, really good pick. Really good pick.
And not to ruin the ending, because we won't, but what an ending as well. Jesus. Like, you think it's horrific, and then you get to the end and you go, effing hell. That is something.
Yeah.
So I'll go to my picks now, and I've pivoted slightly because I couldn't remember a single detail about one of them, and that'd have been pretty awkward.
Hey, you've got me on. No one forgets more than I do, so you'd have been safe. I forgot the ending of the film I picked.
It was the first one was going to be Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2, which I have very, very vague memories of, because the first Prom Night, it's kind of pretty standard but bloodless sort of slasher. It's got Jamie Lee Curtis in. It's got disco. Disco makes any slasher better.
Oh, so much disco.
And the second one is basically sort of post Nightmare on Elm Street surrealism. And I just remember the vibe of it. It's just, that's what you want from a slasher sequel. You don't want the same thing, but with a new cast of hot young things to be done in. You want something to go really nuts.
Yeah. And
I can't remember any details of it, but it is available on Amazon Prime, and it will be a great recommend because it's just such a fun movie. So for the first one, I've pivoted to something I remember a bit better, because it also has under 50,000 Joseph Kahn's Detention. Only 32,000 watches, which I thought, surely not. Surely it has more. But no. Joseph Kahn is a music video director, and it has that aesthetic. So the aesthetic of Detention can be quite divisive. But the theme of my two are just two very, very insane horror movies. There's so much going on in Detention. It's a high school with time travelling. There's a slash. It's just too much. Can somebody please remember it better than me, because there's so many plot threads that come back and go away, come back and loop around. It's a very dense narrative where I feel like if you watch it once, you kind of don't watch it at all, because it's got so many ideas going on there, and that is used as an insult by many critics. They're just throwing whatever they fancy at a wall and seeing what sticks. That is the ethos of this movie, but I think it works for it because it's not a straight narrative. It's a time-traveling narrative, and it loops around in and itself. It's about two movies playing continuously within each other, and it's just such a bold thing. And yeah, Detention is... The one thing I will dispute about it, the thing that stands out most is some character says the 90s and the new 80s, and thought, do you remember the 90s? No, they are not. They were a bad decade. But yeah, Detention was my first, which I I can't remember that one either, so, I'm picking some great stuff here. Anybody else remember Detention a little bit better than me, maybe?
I've seen it.
No.
That's as much as I'm willing to say about Detention.
So, no, you can't remember as much of it.
Oh.
Or more of it
I
than me.
can't stand
That's fine.
Detention. I'm so sorry. I can't stand it.
It is divisive.
I
It's
do
very,
not
very
enjoy it.
divisive. Yeah, it's the same
But
with
yeah,
his new one. His new one's supposed to be like that too. Ick. It has that sort of machine gun pace to it, which has rubbed people up the wrong way. But
I get what he's going for. It just wasn't for me. But like you said,
yeah.
I know, like most of the people I know love it.
I mean, that was 13 years ago, so I could watch it now and it just could give me a headache. You never know with these things, but at the time it was incredible, I think. But
I've got a feeling Caitlyn likes it, because do you like it, Caitlyn?
I do like it, yeah. Because I've got ADHD, probably. No, I think I've watched it once, sort of quite close to the time of release. So as you say, I think there's so many plot threads and so much happening. It's one of those things that's very difficult to recall specific beats on the fly.
I remember there's a Canadian in it. There's something weird with one of the Canadian actors. That's the only thing that's really standing out, because it reaches. It makes some reaches.
I think that's the thing, though, with when you get sort of someone who is primarily known for music videos. In that music videos, you tend to have one concept, and then you can throw everything at that one concept. So Joseph Kahn did the video for George Michael's Freak, which is kind of like a futuristic, very sexy world. And in that, he's able to throw a lot of imagery at once, because you have this grounding of like, well, it takes place in this futuristic city in which, women are sometimes Rottweilers and sometimes not. And it's, sometimes George Michael is a sexy robot and sometimes he's not. But like, and again, that sort of nod towards sort of the hell of capitalism, then, like these adverts. And I seem to recall a lot of that within there is that it's like this very focus on American pop culture as a sort of as a pinpoint, and almost doing up that like Edgar Wright flash cut to everything taken into the extreme.
Yeah. It's probably one that's due a rewatch, I think. I'm not sure how available it is, but
yeah, no, I mean, I remember liking it. And again, if it's the kind of thing that you're going to put on while you've potentially got trick-or-treaters coming to the door, then absolutely. Because if you put on something like Sleep Tight, you're going to shit yourself every time the door goes.
yes,
And you don't want that, do you? You need balance in these things,
Yeah. Anybody else?
I keep
Detention. Remember Detention.
I might
Any more
have watched
details,
it,
please?
but I get it.
I'm intrigued. Is it the one with Josh Hutcherson in?
Yes, very young.
I get it confused with.
Because I think it was released 2011, but it had been sat on the shelf for a while before that, so it's probably like 2009. So he's very young.
I get it confused with
Josh
F,
Hutcherson in that.
which
I
was
think
like
it
the
were
British one set in Detention. So in my brain, they've
love
merged into one. So I can't. I'm now putting like Josh Hutcherson into like a British Detention film.
I think Detention were 2011, because I think it was my second Frightfest. So I think it was pretty early days. Yeah. A long time ago.
Very much so, yeah. So I'll move to the second one then, which is a nuts movie which you'd have to be insane to forget. It's a 1986 Hong Kong movie called The Seventh Curse, which doesn't make any sense. It starts off as sort of a hard-boiled, the 1982 action classic sort of action set piece where it's a doctor but he goes and solves crimes and he's got to book some girlfriend at home. For no reason. There's no reason for that to happen in the movie. It doesn't occur again. And then it jumps into I think it was either a gin or a rum commercial. And it's not an accident. It happens again over the credits. But after that, it jumps to this sort of cult piece on an island where a cult is trying to take over and slowly take over culture and seed people and put monsters inside of them for some reason, and the doctor's sent over there to get part of the ingratiate into this cult, see what's going on, sort out what's going on, get rid of him, move on, save the day. He's a big hero. But it's full of these gruey effects. This is a guy, what's he called? He's the director, Lam Nagai Kai, who did a movie called The Cat, which is about an alien who's embodied a cat and he's come to Earth to save the world. So he's a bit of a nutty fellow. And not to spoil it, but it seems all like Doom has ended for the characters of the Seventh Curse, but for some reason, not apropos of anything, Chow Yun-Fat turns up with a rocket launcher and shoots the monster at the end for no reason. He just does.
You've just taken the niche award from Sarah here.
Yeah.
See,
I relinquish my crown. Like,
it's pretty readily available. It's on 88 movies, but my sort of idea behind my two was this is what happens when the people who make it ingest more cocaine than their own body weight, and see what happens. Because the Seventh Curse, it's one of those. It feels like it was made by a 15-year-old who doesn't really grasp film storytelling or anything. It's kind of and then. It's the same guy who, I mean, I'm sure this name might strike up some sort of notion of familiarity, but
Yes.
The Story of Ricky, does that anybody familiar
Oh,
with
vaguely,
that?
I'm aware of it. Yeah.
It's the same
my
guy
God,
who directed
yeah.
that, so it has this sort of manic, edge of the seat sort of, we don't know what we're doing, but we're going to do our best anyway sort of mentality to it. Nutty 80s Hong Kong energy horror action, which you will never ever forget it. Because Chow Yun-Fat literally just turns up. He's in the one scene at the beginning and he completely vanishes and he turns up. He doesn't set up that he's going to turn up, or he has no reason to turn up, but he does, and he's got a rocket launcher and he shoots the big monster, which it just happens. It's one of those movies.
I
I can see why you'd pair it with detention, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Letterboxd, there's a review. They hired Chow Yun-Fat to look cool and smoke a pipe, and I respect that.
Yeah, it's pretty much it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was like, and 3.5 stars. I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds pretty.
I think every now and
Pretty
again
good
you just need some mad bastard with a bit of money to just go, I'm gonna do a film. What's it gonna be about? Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
pretty
do
much
it.
That's pretty much it. They call them the Worm Tribe and blood curses, but it's got like head explosions. It's got all sorts of things going on. It's pretty bold, like practical effects. Just probably not a great budget, but it's very gruey effects as well. It's not like when you think of sort of low budget practical effects, you think of bless them, they really shouldn't have done that. That's quite exposing of the movie. But sometimes you get people who are very, very good with very low budgets and do excellent practical effects. Yeah. And they're really punching above their weight. I think The Seventh Curse does that, but also it makes zero sense, and there's also a drink commercial in it for no reason. Like, literally. It's literally a commercial. It's not like me being dramatic and saying, like, for dramatic effect that it's a commercial. No, it's a commercial for rum. No, not rum. Gin. Or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a little while. But
we know where the money was coming from then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like, buy a pool. He's like pausing with his drink, and he's like, yeah, buy this drink. It's like, okay, that's a bold choice.
Like when J&B appears in the background of every Jallo ever made, and you're just like, oh, there's that bottle again. Or there's a wonderful movie called Chantilly by Matty Doe, which was part funded by Lao Beer Company. So in the background of almost everything, there's like the fridge is full of this particular beer and things like that. And it's just a little thing that you notice, and it's like, do you know what? It made this beautiful ghost story, which features a greyhound prominently. So, you know, it's a beautiful movie, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I think it's better to be unsubtle like that, because when they try and hide the product placement, it's just kind of goofy.
Yeah.
A little, not so much like the Transformers, where I think they had like a Mountain Dew vending machine turn into a robot in one of them, from what I
Oh my
remember.
god.
Which is,
Yeah.
I prefer just, somebody drinking, this Mountain Dew is great. You should really buy it. I think I'd be more
Which one? Oh,
respectful
no,
of it,
it was
really.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2. There's like always a can of Coke in the back, in like pretty much every other scene. There's like one of
really?
those 80s cans of Coke. And I remember first time I was watching it, I was like, wow, they are not even subtle about this.
Oh, they can go further. They can go much further.
You want unsubtle? I'm going to bring up Neighbours again because it wouldn't be me if I didn't bring up Neighbours. There's a whole plot line where the Rebeccas get an Alexa and they then weave it in where they're like, oh, she can do all these things that, she can listen, she can record conversations. And then the Alexa like exposes like some big secret because it's been recording the voices. And it's like for like 2 or 3 weeks, it's just like constantly promoting like all the little like tricks that this assistant can
No
do.
way.
So yeah, it's shameful. It's shameful.
Shameful and
Surely
hilarious.
That's the opposite of an advert. You like going like,
Oh, yes.
don't be up to shit because Alexa's going to dob you in.
Oh yeah. Just be like really careful with your Alexa.
It's like a terrible Father Christmas. Like, what's going on?
Alexa sees you when you're sleeping.
Oh, wow. I think that's a bombshell to end the episode on, really. Alexa sees you when you're sleeping. So running through our double bills again, going back to Kat, what were your 2 picks?
So mine was Live Screamers, which I didn't say earlier, but has 297 logs on Letterboxd, and The Hallow.
297. Wow.
It is new, but yeah.
It's still. Caitlyn?
I had Blew My Mind and The Hatching.
Fair.
After Midnight and The Leech, I'm not going to say what the numbers are from Letterboxd because I'll probably balls it up. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Mal picked House at the End of Time and Sleep Tight. And Sarah?
I had WNUF Halloween Special, which I think was 12,000 views on Letterboxd, and Savage Land, which was 11,000 views on Letterboxd.
And I went with Detention, which has 32. And where are we? The Seventh Curse, which has 9.5. So, real popular movies here. So please do check them out, because there's some... Well, they need a little bit of love. Every movie needs a little bit more of love, I think.
Yeah.
And yes, so Kat, where can we find you and the stuff you do online?
So I am at Gizmo Shikari on Letterboxd and other social media. I also have a chaotic micro podcast called Movies with Mummy with my 5-year-old, which, I know she listens to these and make sure I plug it. And I've also recently started a Lost rewatch podcast with Andy Connor called All of Us Are Lost. And that's coming out on The Geek Show every fortnight. And yeah, I've now got a little bit ahead of where we're recording and I'm having to stop because Andy's not there yet.
Caitlyn?
Yeah, I think Scared Sheepless on pretty much everything, apart from Instagram, in which I am Scared Sheepless blog because someone had taken it. Who knows? Yeah, kind of trying to get back into the reviewing thing, but with a gigantic backlog.
Yes, they top up very, very quickly. Emails, the devil's work. Fair.
Currently in a bit of a rebrand still. But if you want to go back and listen to what I used to do, then it's I Spit on Your Grades at Twitter.
And Sarah?
You can find me on the socials, Sarah Jo Smiley. At the moment, I've been writing anime reviews for Asian Movie Pulse, and at the moment in the midst of reviewing the first 3 Gundam movies, which is so very 80s.
oh yes. They put a new movie on Netflix for Gundam, haven't they, which is odd part of their strategy of doing anime movies. Netflix. So all the power in the world to them, really. And you can find me across social media at Uncut Robcast, and email the podcast at directorsuncutpod@gmail.com. Give us your double bills. That'll be interesting. I'd like to hear what people have to say, and please email us because I want some feedback. I want one of the cool podcasts. That's mailbag section. Envious of them. But until next time with what we got next? Eastern Bloc Sci-Fi. Thank you very, very much for listening.